now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The head office of the Independent National Electoral Commission in Akure, Ondo State, southwest Nigeria, was yesterday gutted by fire and has continued to smolder up to the moment. Well, according to information provided on the verified Facebook account of the Commission, the fire broke out at 7:30 p.m. yesterday, and this development has come exactly a month to the scheduled governorship election in the state. Well, earlier on, Arise correspondent Tokunbo Taiwo was at the scene of the fire incident and filed in this report.
Here live at the Ondo INEC office here in Alagbaka, Akure. The fire incident actually started from what we've gathered from 7 p.m. last night. And what we can see at the moment is that the fire hasn't been completely put out. Even though the fire service was called upon, we can actually see a fire truck here in the INEC office. But from what you can see behind me here, the fire hasn't been put out. It's still there. There's a lot of smoke, and we can still see some further fire in the further departments of this particular office. From what we know, all of the things that was contained here were smart cards. It will be sort of interesting to see how this plays out in the Ondo State polity and how it will impact the elections come a month later, the 10th of October 2020. From what we gathered here at the moment, not much info has been given to us as regards to the cause of the fire. We're waiting for officials to come along to sort of tell us more regarding the cause of the fire, what really happened, and how it was dealt with, and the aftermath regarding how this is going to play out eventually. Once we have all that info, we'll be coming to you and bring in more details. For now, this is all we have. Tokunbo Taiwo, Arise News.
Our correspondent on ground there, Dr. Bati Rufai, why we cannot speculate as to the cause of this fire. It looks all too familiar. This was a scene we saw playing out over and over again in the concluded general elections in 2019. And one would have thought that given the power of hindsight, INEC would have taken that extra care, extra caution around their facilities and installations. And we do hope that if this was the work of saboteurs, that they will be brought to the book.
Well, it looks like the offices of the Independent National Electoral Commission are beginning to acquire a reputation for being fire-friendly. Sometimes we're told,
reputation.
Sometimes we're told that it is a fault with electrical appliances, some staff forgetting to put off the electrical appliance. And oftentimes these accidents occur during election periods.
Exactly.
So the coincidence is also very curious. So that's why anytime you hear about a fire incident or any other mishap in an INEC office or at a collation center, people are very suspicious.
Yes.
And what has happened in Ondo State is no different in that regard. We were told that the fire started, as you pointed out, just around 7 or 7:30, a little after 7:30. And the fire started in the ICT section, and it affected a container that had been brought containing card readers meant for the election on October 10. And over 5,000 card readers went up in flames. What is again curious here is that the fire service station is just about 500 meters away from this INEC office. Now, 500 meters away, you ask the question, why did it take them so long to get to the scene of the incident? And then to even hear that as at this morning, the fire is still burning.
Yes.
So these are questions to be asked. But incidentally, we were told that Dr. Festus Okoye, a national commissioner, was on the ground in Akure as part of the preparations for the coming October 10 election. And he spoke and said the incident will be investigated and that they will try to address what has happened. Well, whenever there is a fire incident, what we're told is that there will be investigation. In April, there was a fire incident at the INEC headquarters in Abuja. I'm not too sure that anybody knows what the outcome of the investigation is, apart from the initial disclosure that it has to do with an air conditioner that became faulty and caused the fire. So we hope that this is not an attempt to derail the electoral process or to sabotage the electoral process. Well, 5,000 card readers. And we also hope that INEC has in stock additional card readers that they can move to Ondo State to prevent, the election being affected one way or the other.
Rufai, unfortunately, 1,000 of these card readers were already brought in from Osun State to augment what they had in Ondo State.
I can imagine. That means INEC has to make plans for contingencies. That means extra costs. Anyway, they would say, because if you get INEC's point of view, they'll say they've planned for it. But for me, what saddens me is the fact that fires have become recurring decimals in this country, especially for places of interest. Why now? Why just about a couple of days to the elections, that place has to be burnt? Why? I mean, we'd like to see the investigation. Maybe it's arson, but the investigation should be very conclusive. And I feel strongly that the police too should be part of this investigation.
Yes.
Let us know what happened. Let us take every side to it. But it's becoming one too many. It's like an easy target. It gets burnt every single time.
Okay.
I don't know what's happening.
I agree with you. There has to be a deterrent. And let's move on now. In the past 24 hours, there has been more positive news for Nigeria regarding her legal battle with Process and Industrial Development Limited, popularly known as PNID. Now, Justice Cranston J. of the United Kingdom High Court yesterday ordered the PNID to make an interim payment of more than £1.5 million to the federal government within 21 days. According to the judge, the amount is to cover legal costs the federal government of Nigeria incurred as part of its successful application for the extension of time to challenge the arbitration award and procedural hearing earlier in the year. Also, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, has ruled out negotiations with the company over the $10 billion arbitral award, which a London commercial court has granted Nigeria more time to appeal for it to be set aside. Great news once again.
Yes, this is the outcome of the second scheduled hearing at the court of Saros Cranston, English High Court, yesterday. So I think at this point we can say, yes, this is some victory. You know, earlier on when we interviewed the Attorney General of the Federation, I'd used the word reprieve and relief. And now, you know, this is an indication of great hope. At the last hearing, Justice Cranston had made three things clear. One, we were given the extension of time to appeal the arbitral award. Second, it was also established that Nigeria has a prima facie case of fraud, which was the basis on which Nigeria had gone to court. Three, it was also revealed in that judgment that there were cases of negligence, corruption, breach of processes and procedures on the part of certain Nigerian officials, some of whom were expressly named by Cranston J. Now, the case will go to a full trial, which is what Nigeria is seeking. And that will be in November. And we're hoping that, you know, that November hearing, Nigeria will have been fully prepared. And we can see an indication of that with Abubakar Malami, AGF, insisting that Nigeria is not going to negotiate with PNID because it is clear now that we have a good case. But what is important is for us to pursue it diligently and ensure that we don't have to pay $9.6 billion, which we seem to have been the product of a fraudulent process, as Nigeria has been able to make its case. So we look forward to the next steps. And if we win at the end of the day, that will be a major victory for Nigeria.
I mean, I'm very excited about this, but I will look at the antecedents very strongly. The fact that we've now built a system in government where officials connive with companies to come and rip their country off. Then I asked the question, where is patriotism? Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Reforming the Irreformable book she wrote, she talked about this a lot, contract scams here and there. I mean, we're excited we can start to overturn PNID, and hopefully by the grace of God in November, we should be able to beat them at this case. But that's the scary part for me, the fact that fellow citizens of this country connive with foreigners to rip this country off.
Indeed, lessons learned. And that's all on these headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have the trio of Rotu Zodiri, Michael Wilson, and Aaron Akarijola to give us updates on Africa global business as well as COVID-19. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Ever dependable Rotus Odiri now joins us to give us Africa Business Update. Over to you, Rotus. Good morning.
Morning, Doctor. Good morning, Adesua. Good morning, Rufai.
Good morning.
We're focusing exclusively on a tweet from the president. Take a look at the tweet here. He was talking about limiting foreign exchange for imports for food. He says, I'm restating it that nobody importing food or fertilizer should be given foreign exchange from the central bank. We will not pay a kobo of our foreign reserves to import food or fertilizer. We will instead empower local farmers and producers. Look at the second tweet. This is my focus here, this second tweet. We have a lot of able-bodied young people willing to work, and agriculture is the answer. Very bold and categorical statement from the president. Razia Khan, who is an economist, Standard Bank, she replied, says, she responded, says, no FX for food or fertilizer can only succeed in fueling a parallel market for FX. Not sure how this can work. Random tweet for a gentleman by the name of Mr. Bendel here. He says, have we built capacity to meet local demand? How do they plan on mitigating the shortage caused by this? I'm in the local food business. Half of my produce is lost in transit due to the poor logistic network. This will only cause inflation of local food since they only continue, since there'll be some further problems. So my focus here is on whether or not agriculture is the future for able-bodied youth. And my response is that I think we should focus more on technology. Let's look at quarterly GDP growth for agriculture here. This is from first quarter 2017 up until the fourth quarter of 2018. Let's move to the next slide here, looking at the first quarter of 2019 through to the second quarter of 2020. Agriculture over the last 14 quarters has averaged 2.5% growth, 2.5, barely meeting up with population growth. Let's look at telecommunications in technology. This is where I think the focus should be. This is the first Q1 2017 through to Q4 2018. And let's move to the next slide there, from Q1 2019 through to Q2 2018. Now, let's join them both together. Let's look at this next chart. And okay, let's stay here for a second. Telecommunications in orange, agriculture in blue. Telecommunications on average over the last 14 quarters has averaged 8% growth, about 8.5, well above population growth. From the second quarter of 2018 all the way through to 2020, you can see it's not even close between the orange bar that's telecommunications and the blue bar that is agriculture, where you've got a sizable investment from the government into agri, sizable investment into telecommunications. Now, of course, telecommunications is part of the ICT sector. Agri has its subsectors in crop, fishery, forestry and livestock. If I disaggregate even further, the gap is even bigger than what it is here. But this is the focus. Now, with regards to tech and technology, let's look at a survey here from Reuters. Because of, if we move to our next slide. This was a report that they did. Because of the foreign exchange illiquidity, a number of traders in Nigeria, they went to Computer Village to talk to them. They've been using Bitcoin to pay their suppliers overseas. Monthly crypto transfers have seen a big jump, about 55% year on year, to $316 million in Africa. They looked at the number of African nations. Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya led those transactions. The Central Bank of Nigeria has been clear that Bitcoin is volatile, it is risky, and is not something that folks should be careful about using. Even I have warned people not to do it. But it is the situation of things. It is where things are that is pushing traders to go there. Let's take a look at a tweet here from Ghana. We're still staying with technology. A Ghana-based digital identity software startup called Base HQ. They won £25,000 on the exchange. That's about 15 million naira in prize in the 2020 Royal Academy of Engineering competition for Africa Prize for Engineering Innovation for their digital verification API, application processing interface, programming interface, that uses artificial intelligence and facial recognition to verify the identities of Africans remotely in real time. We know about our identity issues here, trying to warehouse or rather ring fence our identity issues in Nigeria. Let's actually take a look at who the Royal Academy of Engineering is. Look at what they say here. We are harnessing the power of engineering to build a sustainable society and an inclusive economy that works for everyone. And they are putting their money where their mouth is by trying to assist startups in Africa by pushing forward in innovation. You were just talking about a fire in INEC office. How do you protect the data that is in INEC when they continue to have fires. It's cloud computing. You have to move the data away into a cloud and protect it that way, so all these fires that keep happening don't continue to destroy infrastructure. But that's our Africa updates. I think we should be focusing more on tech than agri.
All right, I'm really excited you're talking about tech. As you started, my ears just started to go up. I'm excited about this, and I mean, if you're in the tech world, you know the Royal Engineering Association. A lot of work has been done as regards artificial intelligence, machine learning, and that's the future of the world. I'm really excited about this because it gives us a lot of opportunity. And these are things that Nigeria can glean from, even in terms of identity and things like that. I don't know if you know about this. There's a system in India called the Aadhaar system. It's got a very high, registration rate that most people with just fingerprint and the like, stored on that Aadhaar system data anywhere in India, you can move around and your identity is captured. And those are things great countries are doing, even of a larger population. I think the last time I checked Aadhaar registration was close to 1 billion people in India are on the Aadhaar system. And it's one of the biggest, cloud computing platform to take data of people and registration and the likes. Real quickly, I just want to talk about Forex and food at a time like this. I mean, the president came out to say, we're not going to be giving FX on this because of what we know, the FX crisis. We're not making enough FX, to be able to now say, okay, but food is really very important. And I did make a tweet this morning, and I said, you see, it's very important. I know we want to have food sustainability. We want to be able to produce our food, churn out our own crops and things like that. But nations all around the world don't have it all. I'll give you a clear instance. China still imports soybean from America. They've been doing that for quite a while now, and that still goes on. I was tweeting this morning. I said, I know a place in England where fresh onion from Eindhoven in Holland comes into England almost on a weekly basis. I know for a fact that England doesn't produce orange of a commercial quantity. So you still need to get this product in. But, it's a very tacky case for Nigeria where the Forex is the challenge and the activities of people in the past too. We know how they've diverted this Forex for various means. So we just need a balance here. And that balance might be a very tough balancing act, I must say. I don't want to stay at the time of these outflows, that are not really necessary for the process. And at the same time, we need to maintain food security.
The big question here is the challenge of food insecurity that Nigeria faces. COVID-19 has even made the situation more difficult. We face a crisis of food availability and food supply. And there has not been enough in terms of policy clarity. Yes, President Buhari says agriculture is the answer. Yes, that's what we say all the time because we talk about diversifying the economy. But what I don't understand, for example, is a contradiction. It's reference to able-bodied men. We're no longer in the age of able-bodied men getting engaged in agriculture. We're in the age of mechanized farming, use of technology for farming purposes. But if the whole idea is about able-bodied men, well, I'm looking at one on the screen now. Rotus is able-bodied. There's another one here.
I'm not fit.
There is Aaron.
The president said able-bodied young people, though. He said able-bodied young people.
Yes, you guys are young. But I think we should have the right perspective.
Right.
Now, how do we deal with food insecurity? The government is saying no access to Forex for imported food and also fertilizer. The truth of the matter is that if you look at the situation in Nigeria, we can't even produce locally enough what we can eat. And the food basket being a major aspect of our CPI, if you adopt this kind of policy in the short term, what you will do is you will drive up food inflation. And if you look at the last MBS statistics figures that were given, you see that food inflation is going up. Wheat consumption, we need maybe about 3 million metric tons. We can't even produce half of that. The same thing with maize. Look at only recently, government had to approve importation of maize for four companies, up to about 320,000 metric tons. And that's an indication that, frustrating the importation of certain categories of food may be a contradiction in terms, may not be a proper reading of the situation. More so as the CBN Anchor Borrowers Program has not been yielding the kind of results that we expect. But we have to continue to engage government to say, yes, we are not food secure, there is food insecurity, there is food inflation. Instead of saying we won't give access to credit, maybe you technologize, you automate, the borders, the customs processes, because it is cheaper to even import food. Yeah. That is the reality.
It is.
Cost of transportation, even in Nigeria, is worse than you importing food from China. It's probably cheaper. So we need a more realistic analysis of the food security situation in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Rutus. I'm moving on to more business update. Michael Wilson joins us now from London.
Good morning. So Asia Pacific mixed stocks, really. They watched what happened on Wall Street, but they didn't react tick by tick up and down. Mainland Chinese stocks mixed. Shanghai Composite down about 0.25%. Hong Kong down about 0.5%. The US jobless claims, those weekly ones, confirmed that the market rebound and the employment rebound in the United States has more or less hit a brick wall, but it will take a couple, I suspect, of more weeks of lackluster readings to force Washington, D.C. to do something about the stimulus package. Continuing claims came in higher as well. The claims surged in California, Texas, and Louisiana. And U.S. stocks, therefore, took these very much on board, really. And the only push to their roller coaster ride yesterday was a relatively upbeat ECB meeting, of which more in a moment. So in the Senate, the Democrats have blocked the Republican coronavirus bill. Senators voted against passing a $500 billion Republican bill. They don't think it's enough. They want a lot more than that. And so a kind of symbolic victory to the Democrats, but it hasn't solved anything as far as Main Street United States is concerned. And I don't know about you, I'm getting the message from the market saying that another stimulus package being passed before the election now looks very, very slim. It may be that President Trump will pass an executive order. He threatened that last week about something, but it won't be enough, and the deadlock is still there. So to the ECB then, the European Central Bank, and press conference gave it was described as hawkish, really, in as much as it didn't go soft on anything. It said that things will probably get better towards 2022. There was no hint of an expansion of the 1.35 trillion euro pandemic repurchase scheme, which is actually going at the moment. And the updated forecasts were mainly pleasing for 2022. I mean, not hugely, but there wasn't really a great deal of indication that the ECB was worried about the present strength of the euro. They're playing a wait and see game. Here's some good news for women and Wall Street and the glass ceiling. Citigroup's naming of Jane Fraser as their next CEO is being seen as an historic moment on Wall Street. She's Scottish. She's also the retail banking chief, and she'll replace the CEO, Michael Corbat, who's retiring in February. She's got good qualifications. I would suggest that she's got quite a job on her hands, actually, because Citigroup is the world's largest issuer of credit cards. And naturally, there'll be a lot of bad debt arising from what we're seeing at the moment. So she will have her work cut out, I would imagine, to do what she's supposed to do, which is to raise margins and raise revenue and raise income. As far as the UK is concerned, well, we talked about this, haven't we, all week, and it looks like it's 2019 all over again. Prime Minister Johnson's law-breaking Brexit plan has actually succeeded in uniting Brussels, former Conservative leaders, Tory Eurosceptics, all in condemnation, and the trade talks are once again in balance. When have they never been in balance, I would suggest. So that continues, and the continuing uncertainty about all this hit the pound hard yesterday, sterling falling back down again. The fear is that a compromise will not be reached. They've had a timetable now set for doing something by the end of this month. I suspect that is not going to happen. We live here now in an increasing state called lockdown, and as far as we're concerned, because of the new anti-spike legislation coming in, it looks like Christmas has been cancelled. So we're all going around feeling fairly glum at the moment. UK GDP, 6.6 rise in July, consensus 6.7%. That'll be the last, really, of the spikes. the record-breaking negative growth in quarter 2, followed by record-breaking growth in quarter 3. That will not continue. And the consensus here is that the Bank of England may be forced to expand quantitative easing again. Further calls for the furlough scheme to be extended here to prevent long-term unemployment. We'll see about that. Finally, commodity oil, US stockpiles jumped by 1.6 million barrels. That kind of put a bit of a dampener on oil supply. The dealers were expecting a decline of 1.4 million barrels, and everything, all the reports we're getting point to lower demand. And the gold was actually quite happy with the ECB meeting yesterday, but the dollar was up and therefore gold was down because you pay for your gold in dollars. And that's the global view.
Michael, first, the EU-UK trade talks. It looks like both sides now are adopting hardball tactics. You had said earlier that, well, this may be like showboating, an opportunity to be able to reach a compromise. But do you still hold that position now that the EU negotiators are saying that the EU will take the UK to court in 20 days? And then, of course, do you still see the possibility of that internal market bill going through Parliament, particularly now that there is division within the cabinet and many MPs, Tory MPs, are revolting?
Yeah, so I think what will happen is this. I think there will be some sort of compromise. I have to say that more and more people are thinking, why do we care about a no-deal Brexit? We could become an offshore hub as far as Europe's concerned. We could become the Hong Kong, perhaps, of Europe. You know, who knows? We still have the City of London, and whether you like it or not, that's where people actually come to negotiate their deals and buy their money, which is very, very important indeed. There is nowhere like that in the European Union, and I include Frankfurt and also Paris in that. There just isn't. So therefore, there's plenty of opportunity for trade. Remember also that the EU is very, very conscious of making the UK's intransigence as difficult as possible, because it's very aware of the fact that it has populist rising in various of its states who are fed up with the EU. And as far as breaking rules is concerned, let me point you towards a couple of things that the EU's done. In fact, one thing in particular, which was it allowed Rome, now we're talking about state aid as far as our intransigence is concerned, it actually turned a blind eye to Rome bailing out its major lender after the financial crisis. It's not supposed to do that. Nobody is supposed to act independently from the European Central Bank and the European Commission. But the EU turned a blind eye to that. There are plenty of other examples. So rule breaking is very much a fashionable thing as far as the EU is concerned. Fines, so what? You know, bring them on, I think, will be the Tory point of view. They still have a large majority in the House of Commons, so this bill will probably go through on Monday in its second reading. However, you are right, the House of Lords may say something about this, but simply to do it on terms of breaking rules, well, I think the EU will probably be asked to get its own house in order much before us.
Right, Michael, your finger pointing is quite very British, but it's fine. It's okay. Let's see how this pans out. I am sure the depositions of Keir Starmer, while he was interrogating Boris Johnson's idea about all of this, was right. I mean, he said it, and now we're beginning to tilt towards. Good luck to the UK. Let's see how they come out of this.
Well, update on COVID-19. Thank you, Michael Wilson. Thank you very much indeed. Here on Akere Jola joins us now with update on COVID-19 pandemic. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, Doctor. Thank God it's Friday.
I've been recommending you as an able-bodied man that should go to the farm.
Doctor, with the information that are actually coming out right now, I don't think so. I will even talk about that as a matter of fact. Because of you, I actually brought something related to that because some developments are actually coming up in terms of response and in terms of sentiments towards getting a vaccine. And unfortunately, Nigeria, I'm not the only Nigerian who actually shares that sentiment that I don't like a vaccine and I might opt not. But let's start it off with AstraZeneca at the moment. Let's tell you that more information are coming out about the pause they put on the virus. As a woman in the United Kingdom was the one who actually experienced that transverse myelitis, all right, the neurological symptoms consistent with arrears, serious spinal inflammatory disease that actually made them stop it this time around. And as a matter of fact, this is the second time they were stopping it. We spoke about that other man, Joe, yesterday, Joe Walters. That happened in July. He suffered from multiple sclerosis, which was not linked to the particular vaccine. So they had to stop it. They cleared that one up. And this time around, they are finding out AstraZeneca are not being straight. As a matter of fact, Paul Soriot has been saying little. That's the chief executive of AstraZeneca. And they say little about what is really going on right now. But from what can be inferred, this is the second time. Some are even claiming that there might have been a stop for a third time. But as they say, an independent body is looking into some of these things, and they'll have to get regulatory checks and see how things go on. Whether it will slow down them rolling out a vaccine is left to be seen. So since we're even talking about the vaccine, now with all these talks about people developing illnesses, people developing serious side effects to vaccines, of course, which includes fever and also pain when you actually take some of these vaccines, especially those that fall into the category of the AD5 and AD26. Now, if they can help me up with the graph there, this graph actually states, of course, the Lancet Medical Journal actually posted an article yesterday which actually broke down sentiments of the world towards vaccines. You can actually see that amongst them, the sentiment in Nigeria is rising, but not too much as Azerbaijan, and you can see Afghanistan there, you can see Pakistan there also rising, Serbia there. These are some of the nations with the most sentiments towards taking the vaccine. Now the funny part of this is, if all this happens, the scientists push through boundaries, break barriers to get a vaccine, and people do not have confidence in these vaccines, then it's a big problem. Most of them, of course, they're saying that it's linked with political instability, places with political instability, and major misinformation has led to vaccines bias or vaccine sentiment. Moving on to the next graph helps us to show something. In 2018, you can actually see that the places with red actually shows where those sentiments are higher than those in blue. I mean, where those are lower rather than those in blue or the particular colors. If you put that side by side with the next graph, which actually was posted in 2015, you get to see that vaccine sentiments are really, really on the low. And this is a huge problem, understanding that if there is a vaccine and people are not just open to taking them, it's left to be seen. Because you look at the places like in France, where it's been low for decades, and 22% is the number there in France that states that moving up to 30% over the years has stated that we might not take a vaccine. And that is how things are actually playing out right about now. But before we actually go, for the brevity of time, let's actually get into India, what is actually happening in India. And once again, they are setting record number of cases in terms of COVID-19 in India. At the moment, it's almost turning to the fact that we've spoken about the US being the epicenter of COVID-19 around the world, but India is pushing the boundaries. And if they can actually help us with the graph, you'll see the trajectory and how it is actually adding up. More than 4.5 million cases right now in India. Over the last 24 hours, over 96,000 cases were recorded, an upward push of 30%. And the deaths also are coming in. Over 1,000 deaths in the last 10 days have been witnessed. And yesterday alone, in the last 24 hours, 1,209 were recorded, which is up by 17%. So things are looking really, really grim in India, as we're seeing it spread across. We'll have a map in a moment, but moving on to the next graph there, this actually shows how the cases are actually rising in India. But at the moment, they've been talking about social lockdown and things that might not just be able to make India cap this particular virus. The number of deaths are not as many as the number of infections, but nevertheless, we are seeing deaths actually rise with over, like we just said, over 1,000 happening in 10 days. Now, moving on to the next graph, is actually this shows the death, and the next one actually shows the places with the most infections. You can actually see the Maharashtra. We said about how things are actually blowing up there. Over 990,000 plus are the number of infections there in Maharashtra alone. Andhra Pradesh, we're seeing them there. Bihar, and some of these key places. So it is spread across India. So India cannot say that there is a place that has more numbers than the others. As a matter of fact, the entirety of India are facing this right now. How they can cap it is left to be seen.
Very interesting one there. You've talked about India. And the shocking thing for me is how India just came from the back and they're just right up in the front as regards COVID-19 cases. But the most important thing, and I want to talk about today, is sort of like a look back. You know, today officially makes it 6 months that COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. How well have we fared? We're still 6 months down. We're close to a vaccine or not close to a vaccine.
We're not sure yet.
Stage 3. There's talk about November. You know, might be the deal breaker. We might get something before the end of the year. But most importantly, in this 6 months, so let's not forget that fatigue has set in. You know, COVID fatigue has set in. People have stopped using their face mask. I went to the restaurant the other day. They didn't even ask for my face mask. I had to put it on by myself and things like that. We're not taking the precautions. I mean, let's go back to the very basic things. The 1, 2, 3s, like I call them, about COVID. Number 1, your face mask. Number 2, wash your hands and things like that. But are people still doing that? So in our reflection, let's also look at vaccine nationalism, the fight, the polarization that's come out of this. Let's also look at the lives that have been lost in all of this, and the numbers keep increasing by the day. The big question is, what have we learned about ourselves as human beings in this last 6 months since it's been declared a global pandemic?
What is happening? Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, Aaron, I'm excited with what's coming out of Nigeria at the moment. I think there's exciting news as it regards, you know, even vaccine production. There was a tweet yesterday by the NCDC boss talking about Nigeria being part of the genome sequencing for the WHO in Africa. Do you have updates on that?
Yeah, they've been talking, of course, Dr. Matshidiso Moeti, talking about the regional director of the WHO, has been speaking about that 12 laboratories will be instituted across the continent to actually help in genome sequencing. But that is to look at, not just look at the strains of the virus and look at the mutation thereof. Whether it's, I don't know, and also because we've been speaking about the fact that maybe Africans might be immune to some of these viruses because of the malaria that we've always been experiencing and because of the drugs we've been taking. Most of this, the AD5 and AD26, which are the major vaccines, the major components of the vaccines that might be given, might not work for Africa due to malaria over the years, because you cannot, how we reacted to it is quite different from how the world has reacted to COVID-19, clearly, from the numbers and from projections. So let's see how it goes.
Thank you very much, Aaron.